Well, good morning and happy Sabbath. It's wonderful to see uh, some faces I know I haven't seen for a while online, and want to welcome everybody. And we're going to open with a word of prayer and get started right away. So kneel with me and we'll beseech the throne of grace. Dear gracious, loving Heavenly Father, that we now want to always refer to as God, no gender attached. We thank you for enlightening us, for leading us on step by step, for bringing us to this very point in Earth's history. You love us. You want to help us. You want to teach us. You want to be able to save us. And we want to cooperate fully with you to that end. So, dear God of heaven and earth, we ask your presence with us now. Bless each one. You alone know what every human being is dealing with at this point in Earth's history. And we depend upon your mercy, upon your grace, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of those that we interact with, and in the lives of all on this precious earth that you created. So be with us now. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to sit at your feet. And we ask these things in the precious name of Jesus, our Redeemer. Amen. Well, I must be honest, I'm almost a little wee bit, I won't say brain dead, but it's sort of like being at a camp meeting where you end up taking a lot, and then sometimes your brain almost stops working. So I can identify with Elder Tess a few times when she's commented to that end as well, and she's covering so much more. It's absolutely amazing, and it is very profound how God has led this movement. Anyway, I've titled today's study Collision / Shipwreck. And we'll consider a few aspects of what that means for us. And I'm going to first begin with a thought question. What does collision mean? Root word we could draw upon, and it would be a verb, collide, but I would like someone to just jump in there and give your understanding of what collision means.
A destructive impact between two or
Okay.
more entities or
Okay.
objects.
Okay. Thank you, Teppo. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. Well said, Teppo. And dictionary definition, the denotation, is a violent rushing against, hitting or striking violently together, a clash, conflict. So that's the noun form. And I'm going to ask the same kind of question. What does shipwreck mean? And that's maybe a little more loaded a question, but it's not a trick question. So if anyone wants to just simply say what their understanding of shipwreck is.
A ship collided with shore.
Okay, Trevor. A ship colliding with shore. Okay. A moving object colliding with an immovable object. Okay. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay. It basically is a noun, meaning the destruction or loss of a ship. And it could be under any number of circumstances. And that's definition number one. Definition number three rather, is a little more symbolic. It just simply means destruction, ruin. And the news cycle over the last week and a little bit has covered the horrific collision of the cargo ship in Baltimore Harbor, crashing into the Francis Scott Key Bridge and the immediate collapse of that bridge, resulting in several fatalities. And I'm going to show a little video clip of this collision that took place on March 26th, basically at 1:28 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I'm going to invite you to watch for three things. First, on the left, you will see all of the lights of the cargo ship go off, come on, then go out again just prior to the impact. Second, as much as you are able to discern, because I'm not sure how clear it will be on the Zoom platform, but as much as you're able to discern the headlights of vehicles moving across the bridge. Particularly note, there's actually a semi, you'll see, it's a little bit larger, but note the last one crossing mere seconds before impact. And the third thing is how rapidly the whole bridge collapses after impact. So I will have to share my screen and just. Okay. Hopefully this sound is going to come through for everybody.
I don't know if there's supposed to be sound, but there isn't any right now.
No, there is no sound, Debo,
Okay, so
actually.
my apologies.
No. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. The sound coming through, yeah. So lights out. Lights on, some of them, not all. Those flashing lights in the middle of the span are construction worker vehicles. they're there overnight working on the bridge? So the pilot from the Baltimore Harbor, the Marine pilot that was as a regular occurrence on board the cargo ship, because pilots in every harbor, every port that are familiar with the underwater topography, with the whole system of the port, always board, and they're the ones that actually steer in a large watercraft in and out of a harbor. And the Marine pilot in this case was able to contact the bridge authority and let them know there was an issue. At the point when the lights went out, before coming partially back on, the ship didn't have any steering. And so it's basically in current flow and just in essence out of control. So I'm not sure if you were able to notice the time ticking off and so on. I mean, that was a harbor video recording, I think done by a meteorologist possibly, but whatever. It's only a matter of moments, if not seconds. And the pilot was able to let the bridge authority know, and the bridge authority actually was able to block the thoroughfare either end on the bridge, and otherwise there would have been a lot more loss of life, undoubtedly. And the I mean, the investigation on this whole tragic mishap, I'm sure it'll take, if not 1 year, possibly even 2 years. And obviously the first priority was initially searching, but then eventually recovering the bodies of victims, and also to after it moved to recovery, I mean, just basically moving to solve how do you extricate all the metal and everything, and even free the ship. All the crew members of the ship were on board, as well as the pilot, for quite a while thereafter, and then opened up the harbor because it pretty well shut down everything. And a lot of commuters in Baltimore use that bridge every day. I mean, President Joe Biden commented that he's been on that bridge many, many times. And then the harbor, the ship traffic in and out, obviously very important for the economy, not only of Baltimore, but where everything's headed to, back and forth. So shipwreck, collision. And we know that the fifth line of institutions, the line of the two institutions, the USA and the SDA Church, from Acts 27 and into chapter 28, allows us to know when shipwreck will happen, but at the Sunday law, basically. And I just want to read quickly Acts 27, verse 41. And falling into a place where two seas meet, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast and remained unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. And it's interesting, just to say, this morning I was rereading that, and I was thinking of that phrase, and I know there's more prophetic understanding for it, but a place where two seas meet. And in a sense, I was thinking of this Baltimore harbor, and pretty well every harbor consists of, whether it be Vancouver, whatever it happens to be, but where often rivers come down, sometimes from mountains or from whatever source high in the mountains, or a lake or whatever it happens to be, flows downhill and into harbor, port area, where the fresh water meets the salt water, and it ends up in many cases mixing, but at the same time, our prophetic understanding, these two seas meet, and in essence, it's marking the, as Trevor said, where the ship, Alexandria, runs aground, and the forepart sticks and the hinder part breaks up, but all on board with Paul's guidance, and obviously God intervening and giving him the counsel to give to the others, all on board are able to safely get ashore, whether on bits of piece of wood or swimming, whatever way, and they are there safely on the shore. Anyway, I'm going to quickly just review the timelines that I have up on the whiteboard, and actually, well, I'll use the whiteboard, and then I can put it up for you, those that aren't able to see it overly clearly. So the 144,000, we've moved from the line of the priest to that line of 144,000. 1989, 2001, 9/11, Sunday law, close of probation, second advent. And this pattern of time of the end, and then a second way mark, as Elder Permitter pointed out this morning in his study, that's the one that isn't given in Spirit of Prophecy, right? The year we're not given even that way mark. It just sort of is a question mark. We get it from the 30th chapter of Great Controversy, but at the same time, it's not the date or 9/11 that we get from Spirit of Prophecy. And of course, we travel through Raphia and Panium as priests, 2019, 2021, and we're approaching the Sunday Law, which we understand to be the shipwreck of the institutions, the USA and the STA. And we're going to continue beyond that to another increase of knowledge, another formalization, and eventually the close of probation, the Daniel 12:1 judgment. And then on through, after that final close of probation, the Jacob's time of trouble, death decree, and then second advent, the return of Christ. Now, the line of the priests, it's the unfolding of our knowledge within our movement. And I wanted to, partly for my own benefit, as well, put up a little bit, just some of the things, and you may be able to fill in some of our good people, Murray, Jonathan, Tabo, Annabelle, others that have missed some things, will be able to provide. But time of the end, 1989, the line upon line, the unpacking of Daniel 11, last 5 verses, verses 40 to 45. And even that line upon line took on new significance, even yet as things further unfolded, because what we understood from Isaiah as being line upon line, and as Seventh-day Adventists, we came to understand that you can actually cut a line, and much as a line will not be able to have, technically can't have 2 times of the end, but at the same time, when you cut a line and you can place one line under another and draw out various points, make applications, and so on, that line upon line took on far more broad meaning. And 1991, 1996 being the increase of knowledge, the formalization, Time of the End magazine, where the 2 rivers in Daniel, the Uli and Hiddekel, are brought out, featured in that magazine. I was trying to remember back, and my brain just wasn't functioning, but does anyone have a thought in terms of 1991? I know it's the 2-year gap, but 1991, what do you recollect? What was sort of the and it may just simply be a further increase of knowledge on Daniel 11, 40 to 45. I understand, but is there anything else that comes to anyone's recollection in terms of 1991?
I don't know if I quite get what you're asking for. Like, the wall fell in 1989, but the USSR collapsed in 1991. Is that what you're asking, or are you asking something different?
Okay, external events, Trevor. No, that's good. Thank you for adding that in. More, it was I was meaning in terms of our message, and beyond increase of knowledge, because obviously that's increase of knowledge. Was there anything in particular to do with our message development that 1991 indicated? And as I say, it may only perhaps be just that very thing, the increase of knowledge on the message that was unsealed in 1989. The Daniel
Debby,
11, 40 to 45. Go ahead.
uh,
Gotcha.
1999, it's the line upon line, and 1991 is Daniel 11. So Jeff started,
Is
to
it?
look.
Dan,
Yeah.
Daniel 11:40. When I was putting it up, I was thinking to myself, I thought, thank you, Katja. And I knew I probably had been missing something. So I will change that. Thank you so much. Because I know prophecy always explains itself. And so I will change that right now. Thank you. Okay, and then obviously 2001, 9/11, and Elder Premier has been unpacking that a little bit more in recent time, and even will yet further. But and then I'll ask for this corroboration too. 2520, and it's interesting because of Elder Perminder's studies in 2009. But at the same time, it was sort of more, it was earlier, 2005, 2006 initially. From my understanding, when the 2520 was first started to be unpacked, being looked at and so on. Have I got that right? Because I'm just wondering the increase of knowledge waymark. Do we mark 2005, 2006, or 2000?
2009.
2009.
2005.
Thank you, Jonathan.
2005 was the year that it was, I think, noticed on the charts and that they began to talk about it. But 2009 was the 2520 revealed, I think.
Yes, the series of videos that Elder Perminder did so well. Thank you, Jonathan. That as well is appreciated. And in 2012, the time setting and the unpacking of, in a sense, a fractal, the 126 out of the 1,260, but also the significance of 151. And Sunday Law 2014, there are, I won't say so many things, but there are a lot of things that I ended up actually not putting anything there, but it had been foretold back from 2012 on that 2014 was going to be a Sunday law. And in essence, it was a case of just having to accept that it was going to be a Sunday law, even though we wouldn't see anything, in a sense, different at that point in time. And actually, I could have put in it was also a shut door for that dispensation, 1989 to 2001.
Debby, what do you have
That's
at 1996? What's the waymark? I can't read what's on the board.
Time of the End, TOE magazine.
Oh, okay. So the reform lines you have at 1989 and then Daniel 11 at 1991?
Daniel 11, 40 to 45 at 1991. That's what Katja was just correcting, because initially I had them both at 1989.
I think from what I remember, the reform lines would be at 1991. It was where I think Elder Jeff recognized that there was a repeating history kind of pattern. And then Daniel 11 was part of the Time of the End magazine in 96, part of the formalization. There at 1989, there was nothing, right? Because it's the Time of the End, it's the kind of the beginning before the increase of knowledge. So there can't be reform lines before the increase of knowledge. It's just the unsealing of a message.
What I recall is that 1989 was when Jeff first came across the reform line, started noticing the repeating pattern. I think that was in 1989, but back then it was very, very skeletal, very basic compared to what we have now.
That's
And then he started writing a series of articles in our firm foundation, right? And I'll have to go back in some of my old notes, but I think that series of articles is what we place in 91, and that series of articles is compiled into Time at the End magazine, which is in the formalized in 96. That's what I
96.
recall, but I know I have notes on this somewhere. I'd have to go back and
Yes, I mean, sometimes there's such a wealth of history searching through some of the things, and that's it, even looking for charts or some of the different things from the past. And sometimes there's some variation in what, a chart somebody maybe has put online or done. So Thibault, I appreciate that. And Jonathan, your remarks. Thibault, just remind me, when was it that Elder Jeff went to the General Conference and Bible Research Institute? But was that in the 91, like after he'd already started doing the articles, or was it between 1989 and 1991? Do you recall?
I don't recall. He
Anybody
had
recall?
numerous sort of like encounters with the BRIP, and got to attend a number of conferences in those early days when he was still, I guess, kind of seen as. But I don't know. I can't speak to that clearly right now. I'd have to go back a minute.
No, that's fair enough. Yes. And anyway, with the Sunday law on the line of the priests, the American election externally, 2016, but that was when Acts 27, and we ended up learning, well, not all of us at that point, but certainly it was getting developed and broadened as Elder Tess was taking it. But Acts 27 and the whole idea of shipwreck, of collision. And 2018, the Midnight Cry, initially sort of September into October of 2018, the two streams of information. And that was the beginning, that was the formalization of the Midnight Cry, but it was particularly the two streams that had come out, obviously, right from the very early days, Daniel 11, and the Time of the End, magazine, with Elder Jeff looking at Daniel and seeing those two streams. Again, as Thibault, you were just saying, formalization of the message, unsealed in 1989, but not the full development of what we came to understand as the two streams of information. And of course, CNN and Fox becoming the symbols of those, symbolically, representatively. And the King of the North, the King of the South, and then the whole concept of triple application. Again, not new. It had come out in various formats previously, but World War I, World War II equals World War III. I mean, obviously, triple application in respect to the three angels' messages. You can't have a second without a first, and if you haven't accepted all of the first message, you won't be helped by the second, and likewise, you won't be helped by the third. And so, first angel plus second angel equals third angel kind of concept. 2019 was a shut door for the priests, a close of probation. Not that everyone's at that point, their eternal destiny is sealed, but rather it's a shut door, accepting the messages and what has been coming out. And that was the introduction, really, of the equality, the symbol being women wearing trousers, women taking on pants, and so on. But that was the beginning. That was the shut door of the dispensation 2014 to 2019. You had to have accepted the 2014 being a Sunday law, but also be able to apply it and live it. And likewise, equality we went through in this next dispensation, ending the line of the priest 2019, close of probation to 2021. Second Advent was the Apis Bull, all the idolatry within our former understanding that we have to let go of, and that encompassed feminism, first wave and second wave feminism, as well as later on moving along through that year of 2020, we have radical feminism unearthed. And as Elder Perminder was presenting this morning, the distinction in the three types of feminism: cultural feminism, liberal feminism, or mainstream feminism, and radical feminism, the understanding of liberal, and we'll see where he takes that with tomorrow's session as well. But radical feminism is where our movement, we've decided we want to be where God wants us to be. So that was a very good development. And then in 2021, the whole recognition of LGBTQ rights, that it dovetails off women's equality through to gender equality. And of course, we've got our overarching Eden to Eden model that I'm not going to go into just at this point. Now, and actually, I'll just maybe the overarching theme, and I'm going to borrow a little bit from the Vespers of 2022 that Elder Tess did through probably a good third of the year in that early first half of 2022. The Sunday law is the overarching theme, wanting to understand the Sunday law more, coming to all the different variations in terms of expanding it to realize it's not a Sabbath Sunday issue. It's not simply a point in time, but it will be developed over a period of time. It's not going to just be one law. It's going to be a combination of laws and legislation. But the other purpose with the Vespers was noting that from 1989, and I recognize some of us weren't present in the movement perhaps at that point, but representatively, 1989 to 2018, sorry, my mind went blank, to 2018, we all were on the right. We were conservative, Seventh-day Adventists, Bible-believing, spirit of prophecy believing, and for the most part, ideally living Seventh-day Adventists. And then from 2018 to the present, which will go up to the line of 144,000 prior to the Sunday law, we shifted left. And so Elder Tess wanted to help us understand the why. Why did we shift left? And basically, to be able to do that, you had to understand the right, and then be able to compare and contrast the left, and sort of take it from there. But at any rate, there were, and I'll just make the comment, change is not something the majority of people take easily to. And when you consider an ideology or a mindset that has been, in some cases, cemented in, but developed over a long period of time, or even a short period of time, but just really bought into hook, line, and sinker, the whole meal deal, the full variation of that ideology. It becomes very, in some cases, delicate, but certainly very challenging to root up some of those deeply held beliefs, and we all have evidence that either for ourselves or for others, different friends and so on, just as this movement has traveled through time since 2018, and 2018, 2019 were sort of years to repeat the messaging and to help all of us be able to navigate, just what the new light, in a sense, not really new, but it's the revelation of God, how they see things, and how his kingdom really operates. And so a change of ideology is exactly what ended up being required, being needed, but also being effected. And there were 4 aspects, and those of us that participated a little bit in the midweek studies over the last few weeks, but it will be a review for sure. But I mean, I'm just briefly going to touch on them, moving on to some other things. But at the same time, the 4 aspects that we were required to understand were fairly basic, in a sense. History, right? But at the same time, it was in some cases a broadening of our understanding of history. So history of Adventism, history of what was going on in the world, and I'll just say it led us up to the moral majority, 1979, Jerry Falwell Sr. And what we ended up coming to recognize was that there was a religious entity that became political, and likewise a political entity, the Republican Party, that became religious. And so it had ramifications on a lot of different levels. But understanding all of that history and so on, and not simple, complex, but it got even more complex when we went to the history of Pyrrhus and the Diadochi Wars and everything that represents, because it was parables that were teaching us and revealing information that we needed to know. And particularly it was the Battle of Ipsus, each battle, Heraclea, and Eventum. Oh, and of course I am forgetting the other one at this point in time, but are important. But it was the whole history of Pyrrhus and representing the king of the south, which we came to equate with Putin, Daniel 8:8, and also the 2016 election, and Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and Putin. Hillary Clinton being representative of what my brain is a little bit um, struggling. I'm trying to think of the name. Pyrrhus representing Putin, Donald Trump representing Demetrius, Antigonus, that's it, Hillary Clinton representative of Antigonus, the fathers, what the fathers have believed. Anyway, the third aspect is this whole concept of the two streams of information and it's also the formalization in 1996. Well, actually, I'll put this the formalization of 1996. There's a formalizing of the Republican ideology and a formalizing of the Democrat ideology, and we see it manifesting today with all the partisanship and the division, and each side has gravitated more and more and more to their respective points on the spectrum, right, left, and far right, far left in the cases of some. And we had a look at, and again, it's the, well, CNN and the Fox News. The symbols of those two streams of information, but it's a formalization that happened externally as well as a formalization that happened internally within the movement. And the last one is the line of the Nephilim, which I've also got on the whiteboard. The line of the Nephilim, and it's God is preparing the world for the Sunday law, and he's preparing us, or rather they are preparing us, but at the same time God is preparing the world, and the Nephilim will be people that will be able to be harvested from that world, because this is the first group. At this point, I'm keeping it simple by leaving the Levites out, and this is the third group. So, line of the Nephilim, they're plowing their early rain, their latter rain, without influence from us. They're coming alongside, going through those agricultural model phases based on current events, based on the journalistic prophets, prophet journalists that they're gleaning information from, and they're still coming along with an increase of knowledge and a formalization, and ending up in essence in very much the same place with all of our message development as we worked through our plowing dispensation and the early rain and the latter rain to the point of harvest for the priest. They've been likewise doing it. And of course, then at the Sunday law, which is shipwreck for them as well, same point, same way, Mark. The call to come out to if not join this movement, just to come out of any connections that are contrary to where God would have them be the loud cry, and then of course the final judgment, the Daniel 12:1 close of probation, in a sense ending their line, and they'll be after that close of probation, it's the period, hopefully fairly short, by God's grace, and through their mercy, but that brings us to the second advent. So the line of the Nephilim, God preparing the world, and some of those in the world are going to be harvestable, be able to be saved. Okay, so what I'm really wanting to do is look at the ethos of the right and the left a little bit more fully. And I mean, our time is going by, so I'm not going to deal a lot with that. This was basically some of the preamble. As Elder Parminder said this morning, sometimes the preamble takes almost more time than the rest of the time. But at any rate, the ethos of the far right and the far left. And again, I'm going to just toss out some thought questions, get some of the words understood and so on as we go through this a little bit. What is ethos? What is ethos? It's been used in our movement now for quite a while. What is ethos? Your understanding of the word ethos.
The character.
Okay, Annabelle, character. Does anyone, can you think of any other synonyms or further words that would define ethos? I think of the word heart, the heart, quintessential element, the main, some of the main aspects of something. Thank you, Annabelle. The dictionary definition is the essential and distinctive character or spirit, and then it goes on with a list, not all of which we necessarily want to focus on, but it goes on with a list. Character or spirit of a race, a people, a system, a culture, an institution, and then the word that, at least back in the day, one was usually taught, don't ever put at the end of your sentence, is a weak link, but that word etc. So anyway, ethos, character, heart, the root, the essence of something that makes it what it is. Okay, likewise, what is the word freedom?
Just for ethos, what about guiding belief?
Okay, Henry, guiding belief. That I think that fits. I was just relating it to in their list. The words, the list begins with the word race, and so I was guiding belief, and I was thinking, well, anyway, well, we'll accept that. Guiding belief. Thank you for adding that in. Do you want to go with freedom? What does freedom mean? Or if not Henry, anybody else?
Well, I was just thinking for freedom, it's sort of like a liberty, but it is a liberty that is over equality.
Okay. You're throwing in some of our, I'll just say some of our understanding a little bit in with that, which isn't exactly cheating. I know where you're coming from, but just the generic definition of freedom, the condition, noun form, the condition of not being under another's control, power to do, say, or think as one pleases. And that was sort of the aspect that particularly Elder Tess picked up on. But to do, say, or think as one pleases. Liberty. So freedom equates with liberty. They're synonymous. Okay, and I wanted to bring in one other little interesting bit of information to do more with the theme of collision, shipwreck, that kind of thing. But there is an actual term, mariner term, freedom of the seas. And that is the right of ships to come and go on the high seas. You know, there is mariner law. I think it actually is called that, or marine law. You know, there are laws governing the oceans, the high seas, and so on. So freedom of the seas is the right of ships to come and go on the high seas. No state having any jurisdiction over foreign vessels except within its own territory, territorial waters. So Canada's extended borders out into the three oceans, Arctic Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. We've got Canadian waters that extend out beyond our land edges. And so other vessels from a different country, Russia, United States, China, wherever, they don't have jurisdiction inside those Canadian territorial waters, and likewise Canadian territory and authority and jurisdiction ends at that imaginary little border marking the edge of where the Canadian waters end. So freedom of the seas. Interesting, because it does have some application in terms of freedom in our discussion between freedom and equality. And freedom often gets coined, at least certainly it hasn't in more recent time within our movement, in some contexts, coined with another word, individual. So individual freedom becomes sort of a phrase that has a meaning. And if we take that concept further, we would come to the word individualism. And what individualism means is a theory that individual freedom is as important as the welfare of the community or group as a whole. So we've got individual, and we've got group, we've got individual. And those, for individualism, those would be equal. The freedoms of group, I'll maybe put that. The freedoms of group or community, individualism, aren't superior to or don't supplant individual freedom. But the corollary is true as well for people believing in individualism, that individual freedoms wouldn't supplant community group freedom, liberties, rights, and that they're both equal. Okay, So that brings us actually, sorry, forgive some of these thought questions, but equality. I like getting participation. I'm not necessarily the best at doing that, getting you, participating, but what does equality mean? And this is a little more, I wouldn't say subtle. That's the word I'm looking for. Theoretical, I guess, in a sense, because we don't necessarily have a lot of good examples of equality in practice throughout our world. But at any rate, what does equality mean? I mean, the equal sign we all understand in terms of mathematics.
I'll say having the same rights and opportunities.
Aha, okay, gotcha. Yes, having the same rights and opportunities. Yes, that's, and it describes it as well. Status could be put in there as well, economic status. And it's interesting how many people may not agree with equality needing to be uppermost, but they can recognize that equality means somebody's freedoms need to be restricted for there to be genuine equality. And that's interesting because in some cases that's the very thing where the tension exists. So let's just do that a little bit. And I'll put it up on the whiteboard. I know it isn't necessarily easily seen due to blurriness, but let's just do a quick list. And I'll make mention that the ethos of put it outside here. Whoops. The ethos of the left, when it's distilled down to what the left actually stands for, what character, if it was to be just put into one word, it would be that word equality. As opposed to on the right, that word becomes freedom. And the interesting thing is, most people would agree with freedom. Freedom is important. Freedom has its place. Freedom is an important aspect. And even in our movement, we know, I mean, God is the, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom, there is liberty. But, well, as I say, we'll come to a little bit more. So how would we, and this is a little unfair to people that haven't been brushing up a little bit on the Vespers in more recent time, but how would we describe on the right what becomes a part of their makeup, what represents the right, if we were to boil it down, and it does take a while. So if I suggested the word government, in some cases that's one of the biggest aspects that we want to come to understand. If I was to use the word government, what kind of government would go on the right what kind of government on the left. And here in Canada, we can see it playing out in more recent times. Certainly, well, down in the United States for sure as well. But I mean, in Australia, you know, England, you can see it playing out in a lot of different jurisdictions. But on the right, freedom. What kind of government?
I would say
Small
big
government.
government on the left.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Henry. And I didn't hear, that's it, when two talk together, sometimes it's sort of like a
Sorry,
radio phone.
I said
call.
big
Cancel.
government on the left.
Okay, big government on the left. And what was the other person going to say? I didn't catch what whoever else
And
was. that
small
wanted-
government on the right. It's Murray.
Okay, thank you, Murray. Yes. Okay, so. Now. Okay, Murray, sorry, you said small government on the right?
Yes,
Okay,
and big government on the left. The left,
yes.
It's
And
like a
Henry, I'm sure you were saying this.
nanny
Go
state.
ahead, Murray.
I was just gonna say, like, the left is, they often call it a nanny state, where the government takes care of everything. And gives you equal access to childcare. Every aspect is always, you know, for everyone.
Thank you for that. I have never heard that expression, nanny state.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else has. Thank you, Murray. Oh, very interesting. But you're correct. Big government where because there are needs and the government is wanting to address the needs. Childcare is a good case in point. Prime Minister Trudeau introducing, you know, subsidized childcare so that it's not so expensive, especially for two parents needing to work and so on. It can get cost exorbitant, and then it becomes a situation: is it really worth for the second spouse to even go out and work, because the childcare, they're basically going out to work to just simply pay for the childcare. So $10 a day childcare was a big game changer for a lot of families, and the NDP and the Liberals getting together to help that happen. So big government, needs of the people, protecting people. You need a lot of people, you need a lot of management, a lot of departments, and so on, and to make it all function efficiently. Ideally, that's the ideal, right? I mean, obviously, it doesn't always work that way. And small government, on the right, the Conservatives are more of the mindset, let society sort of work its way out, that it'll gravitate towards the best way, the most efficient way, keep government hands out of it, let private citizens sort of be their own regulators and arbiters, and it'll all just, in a sense, function. So any other words? Let's come up with one or two other comparison contrast kinds of words. Opposites, I guess often it does end up being when we're doing the contrast, but any other words that come to mind? If we looked at small p and small c, I would end up putting in a word progressivism as opposed to the word conservatism. I'm using it as an ism as opposed to just an iv for a reason, but progressivism, thinking outside the box, wanting to move things forward, keep things, you know, apace with society and where everybody's at. And the other thing is well, and on the right, the conservatism, wanting to conserve, wanting to keep things as they were, or bring them back to what people's recollection is of what they were, that kind of thing, make America great again. Globalism and nationalism were two other ones. And that nationalistic mindset, that loyalty to our nation, and we're going to keep others out. And so it impacts, of course, immigration and different other aspects. And again, we could put in that community versus individual in a sense, but as Elder Parmenter was bringing up this morning, that isn't necessarily, even with liberal feminism, it isn't about the personal so much as it is about a bigger cause, a bigger mission, and that sacrifice on the part of the individual. No pain, no gain, kind of a thing. You've got to be willing to be able to sacrifice. So, what happens when there's a collision? What happens when the two collide and clash? Does equality surrender to freedom, or does freedom surrender to equality? And I'm just going to read out this one paragraph. Anytime court cases come up, the issue is which one surrenders, freedom or equality. If a business owner is forced to employ or serve or sell to or to act against their belief system, their ideology, their freedom is being violated. Equality has superseded freedom. And that's exactly what there's one gentleman by the name of Milton Friedman. I never had heard of him, but just in doing a little bit of research. And that's exactly, he's one of the ones that has spoken. He was a Nobel Prize winner, an economist and so on, but very much about how recognizing that as soon as you have equality, you are sacrificing somebody's freedoms. They're being restricted. And therefore, he's not in favor of equality. He said, if equality is over freedom, then you end up not having either freedom or equality. Neither of them materialize. But if you have freedom in his eyes over equality, then you get both. Freedom, but it also leads to equality. I respectfully choose to disagree with him. Evidently, he's dead now. But you can see how sometimes the think tanks and some of the influencers that end up getting listened to are the very ones that have sway in society in terms of how people really do come to understand these things. Now, there are various court cases, and I'm not going to go into those at all because we went through that a little bit with the midweek studies, the midweek studies. But Burwell and Hobby Lobby from 2014, the case of Masterpiece rather, Cake Shop, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission from 2018, the more recent last year's 2023 303 Creative LLC v. Elenas. And then in more recent time, just even the last little while, individual states, some of the different court cases and so on. There was just one this week, actually, where the rights under Title X, under Obamacare, whereby young people can access contraception, and they don't have to go through their parents. They don't have to tell their parents. They're treated as individual people with individual rights, and they're able to access the contraceptives. And in Texas, parent who pushed the envelope and took case to case to case up to the Fifth Circuit Court, and whereby it was ruled that no, the parents do have to be told. Texas actually has a law to that, and at any rate, it was ruled in the favor of the plaintiff, in this case, the dad, that his daughters wouldn't have the right to access Title X contraceptives without him knowing about it and either giving his permission or, in his case, probably not. Anyway, what I do want to end with is one example, one illustration of this kind of a collision, this kind of tension that exists between equality and freedom. I have a friend who, she is Haitian, born in Haiti, is a Canadian citizen. Has lived in Canada for almost all her life, and moved back to Haiti. And because she needs to make her way, and amongst all of the gang intervention, all of the whole situation that's going on in Haiti right now, she wants her independence. Total independence. Is a very proactive individual, very creative, very isn't going to sit still for very long. So ended up opening her own shop, not in Port-au-Prince, but in a different community, different city, a little to the north of Port-au-Prince, and set up business. And her business is tailoring and seamstressing, making custom clothes and custom orders and so on for customers. And she's only had it up and running for about a month and a half now, maybe almost 2 months, and has had customers and it's starting to build, right? Question. A customer came in to her and wanted her to sew something. And the customer let her know that it was going to be used in a voodoo ceremony. And so my question is, what does my friend do? How do you see it? What is the best way for her to respond? Any comments?
I think
It would seem to me that she's offering a service to the public. So,
Okay.
you know, you better
So
offer
you were
those services.
cutting out earlier a little bit, and I'm hearing that happening again still now. Sorry, so just repeat. It seems to you she's offering a service to the public.
Yes, so on grounds of that, right, what grounds does she have to discriminate? Voodoo is a religion. If someone's saying they're going to use these garments in the what is the private practice of their own religion, right? Now, if someone said, you know, they were going to use it in a Buddhist thing or another thing, would the same reaction be generated? I don't know. Yeah, it sounds to me like that would be religious discrimination, right? They're not imposing
Okay.
anything on you. They're seeking a service that you're offering to the public so they can practice, so they can participate in their own religion, the private practice of their own religion. I know from the Adventist mindset, voodoo has a particularly dark and sort of it's more evil than the other things, which, to be honest, my reflections of late, I think a lot of that is rooted in anti-blackness. It's not any more evil than any other non-Christian religion, from my vantage point. But at the end of the day, the person is practicing their private religion, and you're offering that service to the public. So it makes sense to me that you offer that service to them regardless, and what they do is their business. If they're not imposing it on you.
Well said. And somebody else had opened their mic. Ali, I'm not sure if that was you or Katya or Annabelle.
It's me. I agree.
Okay.
But you know what? Flipping it from voodoo, is that what was it called? To Satanist. What if it was a person who practiced Satanism? I still say do it. Like we learned from the cake industry, the homosexual couple and the Christian cake maker, we learned from that. The customer is right. They have whatever they do in their privacy of their own business. If they want to pay their hard-earned money for something that they need and want to a service that's a public service in the vicinity, they have a right to have what they choose. It's not up to the owner to facilitate or tell them they can't have whatever they, based on their own personal convictions. They don't have that right to interfere in somebody else's business.
Okay, Ali, and does anyone else want to add anything? So I'm just going to wrap up with the final comment. Okay, if nobody else wants to weigh in, like both of you, Ali and Tebo, I used it as a teachable moment, and went through equality versus freedom, and just some of the ramifications if you put one over the other versus the other situation, the opposite situation. And it equates a little bit with witchcraft. And I agree with you, Tebo, in terms of your assessment that a lot of it has to do with racial discrimination in some cases. I think witchcraft, a lot of females labeled as witches. Many times they were midwives, many times they were natural healers into using natural remedies, herbs and just, a variety of different things, not meaning there aren't ones as well who are actually into witchcraft, but at the same time, being burned at the stake or run out of town, all these kinds of things. It's more to do with the mindset of the people who are treating things in that way, and what their belief system is. And as we have learned, when equality is practiced, when a government upholds equality as opposed to freedom being uppermost, then it means that certainly in the public sphere, individuals don't have the right to discriminate, don't have their rights superseding the rights of another. And that's it. All of these different court cases, and more yet lying in future, as we are in the agitation of the Sunday law, each one becomes a situation where we're able to weigh out, okay, where would I sit? How would I judge this? Would I have equality, or do I see it differently? So it's an opportunity for us to tweak our own ideology and our own mindset. Anyway, with that, I'm going to close with prayer and have our closing hymn. Dear God of heaven and earth, we thank you for the Sabbath day. Holiness is what we are drawn to and what we want in our own lives. But at the same time, we do want to practice equality, not just saying change our ideology, but literally to practice equality in the nitty-gritty conversations and decisions of life, our actions. And it gets complicated. It gets complex in some situations, especially when, as Ali brought out, satanic things. But again, it's still another worship, and all false worships, forms of false worship, are on Satan's ground. So it becomes a delicate thing, but a required thing for us individually to be able to navigate this time in Earth's history. And we thank you, dear, gracious, loving God, that you are so willing to teach us and to help us see things aright as you see them. We thank you and pray that we'll continue to grow in the name of Jesus. Amen.